In this video, I'm going to walk through the Proctorio settings. The way that I'm doing the exams is as close to the in-person exam as possible. The students are going to view a PDF, and I have a couple of different versions of the PDF, and the students will be randomly assigned either version 1 or version 2. They're going to just view the entire PDF. I don't have multiple questions built into Blackboard. I just have a single question built into Blackboard where they click on the PDF. That is the only thing that I'm going to show you how to set up. You'll notice throughout the video that you can see this Secure Exam Proctor is built in. In order to get the Secure Exam Proctor available in your Blackboard settings, go to Customization, go to Tool Availability, and what you're looking for here is the Secure Exam Proctor. That's the box that you need to click in order to make Proctorio available for yourself in your course on Blackboard. So once that has been done, you can go to your course content menu. Of course, I've created like a special content area just for the exam. You go to that content area, you will go to the Build Content menu, and you'll click on the Secure Exam Proctor. And once you do that, this tool will appear. Make sure to name it Secure Exam Proctor. Apparently that's important for the functionality of Proctorio. But throughout the video, you'll see that this link just kind of stays here and I never interact with it. And what I was told by Proctorio is that the students are going to be clicking on the actual exam and taking the exam. The only reason why they would click this button is if they run into some sort of issue with the password. They shouldn't run into an issue with the password because the password is automatically filled in through Blackboard. But if they do have some sort of problem, they would click here. But for all intents and purposes, this link does nothing. You just put it in there because Proctorio requires it. It basically enables Proctorio, that way that you know Proctorio is actually working on your course, but the students would be clicking on the exam. I wanted to get into a little snag that I ran into. I woke up the morning of the exam and the exam was blank here. It was just not appearing. So I talked to Proctorio and they told me to go to More Tools, go into my extensions, and make sure that allow access to file URLs and allow incognito was enabled on my browser. Okay, so if something suddenly disappears, make sure to check those settings. First, I'm just going to create an exam. I'm going to go through the whole process of my setup. The first thing I did is I went to create a test. So I'm just going to build a new test. I would like to have a few different versions of the exam. So what I'm going to do in order to create a question pool is I'm going to go to test surveys in pools. The test has already been created. I just did that a second ago. But now I'm going to create the question pool. I'm just going to do it from scratch. This is the PDFs for exam, and I'm going to have a few different PDFs. So the question type that I'm going to create is a file response. So within the box here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the file. You can see there's a few different versions of the exam. So now that the attached PDF file has been created, the students are going to click on that link. Now I will walk you through the Proctorio settings in just a second, but when students click on that link, even if you have in the test settings that it will not open in a new tab, my experience is that it does open in a new tab, so that has implications for the Proctorio settings. So here I would just say something like view the PDF and write your exam on your notebook paper. Email your exam responses when you're finished. So I did that for one. I can do it again. I can create the second version of the exam, select the second exam, and I would write the same instructions. Okay, so now I have created a question pool. The students will either be viewing the first version of the exam or the second version of the exam. So the pool has been created. Okay, I just created this new pool. Now we're going to go back to the test and use that pool in the new test. So here we go. We're going to go edit. Right now this test does not have any questions, so I'm going to put reuse question because the question has already been created. I just created that when I created the test pool. So I'm going to use create random block. I'm going to use the new pool that I just created and see version number 1, version number 2 of my PDF exam is available. So the students will be randomly assigned one of these. Okay, now my pool of questions is available, which is the entire exam. I'm only doing a single question. They just view the entire exam in one. So now, going here to the first exam, you want to pull in the exam that you just created. So I go to assessment and then test. I want my new test that I just created, so it'll appear. Now let's go through the Proctorio settings. At the very bottom of the page, you have the remote proctoring that you're going to click that enables the Proctorio settings. If you don't see that, that means that your browser extension probably has the settings off, like I showed you at the beginning of this video. Okay, so what I did for my students is I did record video, record audio, record screen, and web traffic. I did not do record room. It's my opinion that's a little too invasive, so I skipped it. Now, here's where it's important. Only one screen. Apparently, this is important if students have some sort of crazy setup with 2 computer screens. Somebody in another department had pointed that out to me, so I will use it. Okay, that's fine. Disable new tabs. So I'm going to do in-quiz links only so that the link that I provided to my PDF will open. If I do force full screen, my PDF will not open. And if I do tabs not allowed or no new tabs, then my PDF will not open. In order for my PDF to open, I have to do in-quiz links only. And I did select all these other ones, disable printing. It clears the cache so that the exam is not saved on the student's computer. Everything is cleared once they're finished. And prevent re-entry, you can watch this little video. What I did is I enabled it with an agent. So if the student gets kicked out for some technical reason, they can get back in if they just chat with Proctorio. I did verify video and verify desktop. It's my understanding that when students go into campus to use the computer labs, those computer labs might not have an active headset. So I did not use the verify audio out of fear that it wouldn't work for the students who are doing the exam on campus. Proctorio does use the video camera in order to verify that there's a face in the camera. So for me, that is enough of a verification because I've seen my students during the synchronous session. So I decided not to do verify ID because I'll be able to recognize my students visually. But you have that option. You can also choose to allow the students a calculator. I used a 4-function calculator for mine. So those are the Proctorio settings that I'm using. And I also want to go through the settings at the top of the page here. I like to show the test description to the students before they begin. So I'm going to make this available to students. And so this is what I'm doing in order to manage the different time slots that students reserve. So in my class, I did some students signing up for 9:30 in the morning, and I did other students signing up for 1 p.m. on the same day. So if I made the exam visible for the entire day, then any student at any time would be able to just log in and take the exam. But I wanted to use my designated exam times so that I know when they're starting and I know when they're finishing. One of the reasons why I want to do this is that if I don't hear from a certain student by the time it gets to the end of their exam time, then I will be asking them, please update me. Otherwise, I will most likely have some student who doesn't contact me for the whole day, and I will not know whether or not they were having problems with their exam or whether or not they just didn't submit it or I didn't get the email. In order to have restricted time windows for the exam, this is what I'm using. The actual availability, so my exam is actually today, Tuesday the 22nd. What I did for my availability is I'm basically not using this functionality. I'm putting it so that the availability for the entire class is 1 minute on Wednesday, which has nothing to do with when they're taking the exam. So it's a window that is not actually being used. And then what I'm going to do is down here, I'm going to include exceptions. So here we go. I'm going to include an exception for a couple of different test takers. And I know that this test taker is going to take the exam at 9:30 in the morning. So I'm going to make the exam window available at 9:30 in the morning. Because I have a list of when my students are taking the exam, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make the exam window a little bit longer. I don't want the students to get, the exam is already timed. So once they go into Proctorio, if I have an hour and a half of a time limit, Proctorio is going to stop the exam once they have accessed the exam for an hour and a half. So in the Blackboard settings, I just did a larger window. So for example, if the student accidentally was running late and they started the exam at 10 a.m., I still want to have time for them to have the full hour and a half period before the window closes on Blackboard. So here I'm more lenient with the time block. I put something that is, like 3 hours long or something like that. That's longer than the exam would actually be happening for. Proctorio recommends that the all at once option is selected, so I've selected that, and I just want to make sure everything is okay. I've got my description. It's available to the students, but it's within a restricted time window, and I selected the particular students and their particular time windows because they signed up for time windows with me. Everybody had their own schedule, so that's how I organized it. I've got all my Proctorio settings. Okay, so we're good to go. And now we click submit. So the new test is now available. What I'm going to do is just log out as myself, and I'm going to log back in acting like I'm a student. So if you don't know how to create a test student for yourself, I can maybe show that at the end of the video. But here's my test student account. Now I'm acting like a student. I come in. I click on Take Exam 1 here. Of course, I've provided the students with an email in advance. Here's the new test that you can see that I just created. And because I'm within the student account, only the student that I made the exception for and put the time window for that student can be able to view the exam. Once I click in, this is what the student will experience. They've got your little description at the top. The password automatically fills in. Proctorio takes care of that. Whenever you enable the Proctorio settings, the password is automatically gone through. Apparently I have something open, so it'll just prompt me to close any windows. Start the pre-check. Now it's checking my computer. You can see that my webcam is on. The student needs to just select and share their screen, so they just select. And of course, that would only be if you required it to share screen. If you didn't require to share screen, then that would not appear. Hello? Okay, so this is what the student experiences. You are about to begin your exam. Now we can go to next. And we do a webcam test. Okay, looks like we're good. Now, I did do a test this morning where I had the light from some plants that I have in the living room were shining behind me, and Proctorio said that they couldn't recognize me. So I clicked into the text box and I said, "Hi, I'm just checking to see if this works." And what they told me is that if there's too much light or if there's too much darkness, it will not be able to recognize the student. So I came back into my office here, and now it's actually working. Okay, the exam time is going, and I've got the Calculus 1 PDF. It has randomly selected for this student for them to view this particular exam. I click on it, and now I can scroll through to PDF. This is exactly the same as it would appear for a student in the classroom. If you want to take a look at my exam rules, there you go. What I did is on every other page, in order to give students instructions, I just said start a new notebook page now, and then we actually have the problems on the next page. So I did that in between every single one. So here are the problems, and then I said start a new notebook page now. This will be page 2. So that's how I set up my PDF. Students might have some problems if they're taking pictures with their phone to click the browse my computer button, because the pictures would be on their phone and not on the computer. So I specifically told the students, email your responses to me when you are finished, and they may or may not need the browse computer depending on their personal setup. And then of course when they're finished, they would click save and submit. The only thing I'll add here at the end, let me just log out as student and log back in as as the instructor to make sure that everybody knows how to add a test student to their account so that you can log in as a student and test it out for yourself. You just go here to add test student and you click the buttons. Hope that was helpful. That's a summary of things that I have set up. I wanted it to be as close to the in-person experience as possible. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Final thing I want to add is that if you just Google Proctorio support, they have a chat box, which I found to be extremely responsive. Like I said, something was not working the morning of the exam when I woke up, and I just clicked on the chat and they resolved it for me really quick. So you just click start live chat and you can talk to them about your issue. So I just had my exam period and I wanted to add one more thing at the end here. If it's in the middle of your exam period, you probably won't hear from your students. It's just going to be like crickets while they work on the exam, which is definitely a good thing. But if you want to see if students are working on the exam currently, just go to the exam here and click on Edit Test at the very top. And once you click on Edit Test, there'll be a big red banner at the top of the page that will tell you which students are working on the exam. Hope that helps.